Can't wait till you mess up the
seconds.
intro.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Roundup on mypulseradio.com and on YouTube. Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us tonight, where we're talking some Carolina Cowboys football with the head coach of the Cowboys, Coach Dennis Holt, and Blake Miller, Carson Vermillion. Also here with me, I'm John Boone, and this is episode number 2. By the way, if you have any questions, you can tweet them to us at Carolina Cowboys anytime during the show, as we talk about, of course, getting the season started last weekend and game number 2 coming up this weekend. So, Coach, tough day to start the season in many different ways, not just on the scoreboard. It was a tough day physically for the team as well.
Yes, sir. We lost some very quality guys that we're going to try and do our best to replace this week and move forward and just try to pick up the pieces, rally the troops, and try to go back out next Sunday and put a better showing on. You know, that is not Cowboy football. I'll tell you that much. You know, there were a lot of different things that played into the whole factor of the way we showed up. You know, some of it could be attributed to game 1 jitters. Some of it is game 1 legs. You know, some of the stuff we talked about last week, you know, that we as an organization and a coaching staff were praying that didn't jump up, you know, kind of jumped up and got us early on, and then it just kind of snowballed from there.
And as we kind of alluded to, a few injuries that people are going to want to know about right off the top. Of course, Rochelle Peebles is one of the best, if not the best player on the team, in that he can play so many different positions. He's so fast, so skilled, and yet he had an injury. He had to be really helped off the field, not putting any weight on his leg, and he's had some knee problems, I guess, in the past from what I've heard, and now it's reared its ugly head again.
Yeah, he has, and you know, we're taking it day by day. He's scheduled at some point in time this week to have an MRI done on his knee. We hope that comes back negative, and we're just going to try and pick up the pieces from his injury. His injury is going to be significant because, like you said, he does play so many different positions for us as far as kickoff return, kickoff, defense. You know, he got some reps in at wide receiver also. So he does a lot of different things, and a talent like that, you know, you want to use in a variety of different ways because he does so many different things well that to lose a guy like that really hurts the overall dynamic, not only of the defense, but also those other groups that he's a part of.
Right, because then you have to plug other people in, and the depth chart changes in a lot of different ways, a lot of different positions, because he did so many different things.
Correct.
Also, James Cash, who had a pretty good game, made a couple of great catches, one for a touchdown. He got hurt as well.
Yeah, and unfortunately for him, he actually got hurt playing defense. He's
That was
one of
those things that you were talking about, how it cycles around.
Where you lose a Peebles and then you plug in your backup, because I don't know if a lot of people realize that you're only allowed to bring 21 guys to begin with. Mm-hmm. So once you start having injuries happen, you know, now you're basically shuffling guys around, and now a guy that may play defense now may end up playing offense and vice versa. So Cash's injury toward the end of the game was huge from an offensive standpoint because, like you said, he was the guy all night that was just basically running by their secondary and doing so many different things for us. You know, he filled in for Peebles on the special teams in the return game, and then now you lose him. You know, even though it's not really a serious injury, still he'll be out a couple of weeks with his ankle, just as Peebles will be out a couple of weeks minimum with his knee.
Right. Yeah. And people were saying at the game that it could have been a broken ankle for Cash. In fact, he said that a couple of different people told him that, but it wound up just being a high ankle sprain. So hopefully, those are the kind of nagging type injuries
Correct.
down the road. But hopefully, he can come back sooner rather than later. And that was an unfortunate injury as well because he landed on a teammate coming down from
Yeah.
defending a pass. So those things just happen. And then, of course, Quan Bristol also got hurt.
Yeah, he got hurt on a kickoff return, where he planted and tried to come towards the outside following his blocks, and a guy just kind of dove at him, hit the outside part of his knee, and he's in a leg immobilizer with a sprained knee right now also, looking at 2 to 3 weeks. So a lot of these guys, may be back for the home opener, and depending on how their bodies heal and how well they rest up from these and the therapy they can go and get, it fortunately we lost 4 good ones, Shaq being early on, in the first quarter, he tweaked a hamstring. I'm still waiting to totally hear from him and his doctor how that'll go. But we're just going back to work tomorrow and basically going to look to try and put the pieces back together and fix the things on tape that can be fixed. As we talked before we came on air, there was like 8 or 9 plays where we had guys in great positions to make a play on the football, and it was almost like you have a second wind and basically just lift the ball over the top of them and they catch them and go for touchdowns. Those are the things that we talk about as far as getting your game legs and just totally being in the right position and committing yourself to what we're doing on the defensive side of the ball. Those things kind of just hurt you. Football is a game of inches to begin with, and unfortunately, early on in the game, we came out on the losing end of those plays that kind of put us behind real early and real fast.
I'm going to switch up a little bit on the script here, but let's talk a couple of positives. If you had to choose an offensive, defensive player of the game, who would they have been?
Offensively, I would probably give it to 2 guys, and that would be the 2 wide receivers, Tom Tolbert and of course James Cash, because those guys basically made play after play when we really needed them, when our backs was against the wall. Tolbert catches a little 7-yard out route and basically gets a great block downfield from Cash and takes it in for that first touchdown. And then, I really don't know if they ever covered Cash the entire night. When you go back and you really look at and break the film down, the guy was open just about every play that he took a snap on the field. And defensively, I would literally have to say the entire defensive line. That whole rotation of those guys was solid. They rushed the ball 2 times that I know of. When you look at, they basically just stopped running the football. So when you can just take a team that we know likes to run the football, they showed often that they could do it last week against the Havoc, and we just basically took that completely away from them. So I think the defensive line played well, and I think those 2 wide receivers played well.
All right. When we come back, we'll talk about some of the questions we have going forward after what we saw this past week. As we've alluded to a couple already, but we'll get a little bit more in depth. You're listening to the Roundup, Carolina Cowboys weekly talk program right here on mypulseradio.com. guess we'll have an air after hours.
Hmm.
They turn the air off after hours.
Save a few dollars.
Carson, you gonna talk?
I would have if I had a chance, but I didn't have a
I kept
chance.
looking over there, and you were just like,
I didn't know what he cut in.
all you have to do is go.
Gotcha.
Right, Blake?
You have to put his name on it so he'll know.
Yes,
This is-
Carson,
this is my
please
first
speak
rodeo.
here.
We got our
This is-
units separated out anyway, so it's
You doing your
Okay, well, yeah, you'll get to do that,
quarterback,
but you can
linebacker,
linebackers and line.
secondary lines.
Alternating.
do it again.
Well,
I'm probably
Mike
gonna ask
said
multiple questions.
he doesn't have those stats for me. But he said he'll have the updated stats for Peach State and ours tonight and tomorrow.
Probably coming back.
No, not yet. Another 12-second one and then you're back on. So yeah, 10 seconds. 5.
Back on the roundup on mypulseradio.com and YouTube tonight. Glad that you're with us for episode number 2 as the Cowboys head to week number 2 for them against the Peach State Cats. We'll be talking about the Cats a little bit later in the broadcast. Did want to talk about a few positions. Now, Blake and Carson are going to break down all the units in a few minutes, but a few positions of real concern that kind of stuck out in that game is I know you wanted some better play out of the quarterback position. So what do you do to improve that?
Honestly, you just go back to work and get those guys working with the wide receivers and just try to continue to build chemistry. You know, we missed a lot of open passes. I think we held on to the ball way too long on way too many of them. And you have to look at, Yoshi's been in camp or with the team all of 3 weeks, and Martinez has been here all of 5. So we'll just go back to work, and I believe in those 2 guys. We'll open that battle back up, and we also had a third quarterback in Hunter that will open back up, and of course we'll take the best 2 that gives us an option to win this week, and we'll just go back to work and see if those guys can improve, not only just physically on the field, but their mental aspect, their mental preparedness and mental toughness of that game. Because I know as a former player, no one likes to be pulled out of a game, but when you're not doing the things that we expect of you as an organization, as a coaching staff, then you have to give the next man an opportunity. So in doing that, I think we saw some good things, and we'll try to correct those bad ones.
You see a guy like Sutphin on the other side who's just, you see the difference in the poise. That's the one thing I noticed about the great arena quarterbacks is it makes it seem like they've got a ton of time to throw.
Mm-hmm.
And when it's exactly the same as it is on the other side, but they are so smooth about their quick reads and where they're going to go. And that's just something, I guess, that's got to come with practice, right? It's just getting that comfort level that gets you to an area where you can just step back, throw, and feel good about it.
It is, and you're talking about a very good quarterback, and he put his whole arsenal on display Saturday, and when I went back and looked at the film, I get the stopwatch going, and I'm seeing on average, he's right about 1.6, 1.7. and the ball's coming out. So you figure literally less than 2 seconds of that is the snap to him, and then you add 1.5 seconds and the ball's coming out somewhere, you know. So he's has a very good grasp of their offense, and his wide receivers, you know, are very talented, made some incredible catches also, and those are the types of things that, you know, as a younger quarterback or a quarterback in general, you just go and you look at that film, and you study your mistakes, and you look at what we're trying to do, and you just try to improve on those things, and you know, you put it to bed, and you move on to the next game. You don't sit and try to beat yourself up. Well, I could have did this better, I could have did that better. Well, that's fine. You look at those things, but you have to take them, store them in your data bank, and then just kind of speed yourself up. I think we just got too comfortable early on where we had, you know, good protection up front, and then we just started speeding our own clock up and short hopping some open wide receivers, and it just became a frustrating evening to them both, and I know they both wanted to play a whole lot better than they did, but those are the things you just tip your cap to the other guy, and you move on and prepare yourself for this week.
The other position is kicker, and of course, when you have a good kicker, it's a weapon. In an arena football, every time the kicker is out there, there's a chance for points to be scored. Yeah, if he's a strong kicker, he can get an uno. He can keep it away from the return team. So many different things he can do. Kick field goals rather than having to go for it on fourth down all the time. Nothing against Cody Haney, because that guy will run through a wall for you and do whatever you ask of him. But do you think that's a position that needs to be addressed with, you know, given the short fields and such that happened the other night?
I definitely think we'll be looking to bring a few true kickers in this week to try and get that corrected. And it's no knock to Cody, but unfortunately for us, the guy we had slated for that position basically decided not to play. So you can't knock him. No. We were pressed into an emergency situation where we looked up and down the depth chart, and it was like, well, he's the only person that we even know that has attempted a kickoff or a field goal in an arena game. So we just went on and gave him that option. He worked extremely hard this past week to get ready for this, and unfortunately it just didn't translate into any amount of success for us, either on field goals or kickoffs. I think we averaged giving them the ball somewhere right around the 25, which is midfield, and field goals, we had the one bad snap on the first one, and then the second one we really had no shot at. So those will definitely be things that we can correct just by bringing in a guy that's a true kicker, and then just let Cody go be what he normally is just an overall athlete that contributes for us in a lot of different ways.
All right, and the third area, which again these guys are going to address in a minute, but the defensive backs, and you kind of alluded to this earlier, they kind of got stuck in between sometimes, and it seems like early on in the game they were getting beat with the short game, and then it was the long game, and then they played back and were giving up the short game again, and it was either way, guys were getting open way too often, and several times guys were just coming off the line completely uncovered.
A lot of that was due to the fact that once frustration starts, guys tend to lose their job responsibilities and start freelancing is what I call it, where they're just out there doing their own thing. And anytime you freelance in arena, you leave the entire team, the entire defense vulnerable. Because if you're supposed to cover that back third and you're worrying more about a flat responsibility that, say, a linebacker is supposed to go to, and he's not getting out quick because he's watching his keys and his reads in the backfield, then now that's where you open up that half a step, that 2 steps that those guys were able to just get, where it seemed like no one was covering them. But those are the things that are easily addressed because it's just being comfortable with guys. You look at that defense that started the other night. We only had 2 guys on that whole defensive line that was with us last year. And those were the nose tackle and the left defensive end. Everybody else was new to the team. So it's all about building trust and chemistry with each other and just having faith that the defense is going to put you in the right position if you do your job and not try to cover for the next guy that may be a little slow. I've often said it's easier to come up and make a tackle on somebody who catches a 5-yard pass than it is to tackle a guy in the end zone. So one way you're giving up points, the other way you're giving up yards. You're going to give up yards in this game. You're going to give up points in this game. But stops are huge. You know, we had some penalties that kept some drives moving down the field. We turned the ball over. We gave them short fields to work with. And those are all the things that are a recipe for disaster. But they can all be fixed relatively easy with just getting back to work and working amongst each other and building that team chemistry.
And this week, of course, you're going to have some more DBs back there anyway because a bunch of them got hurt last week. So you're going to have some new guys back there and building up new chemistry. When we come back, the tough questions come your way because it's Blake and Carson talking about each unit of the football team. As we move forward, you're listening to the Roundup on mypulseradio.com.
The tough question.
Yes. Because they don't care. They're just going to fire them off.
Right. And guess what? I don't care either. We'll answer
That's
them.
what we like. That's what we like.
You know, some of these guys need to hear the brutal, honest to God truth.
And if there's anything that you want to talk about that we haven't brought up, by all means, let us know.
No, so far you know, I got my little script here that I prepared coming in, and so far we've hit all of them.
I guess I forgot this group, but I'll finish it with wide receivers.
I was thinking the same thing.
You forgot the script.
I used to
Come on, man.
Okay.
No, you're welcome back. So I'm just starting on your thing. Yeah. I'll just answer all the hate mail.
Lord knows I've gotten my fair share the last couple of days.
It happens.
Oh yeah. And the worst part is you know, guys buying into that. You know, we talked last week about the whole, you know, slated to
15
be
seconds.
champion. And it's like,
Yeah.
You buy
And
into
then
that.
that whole social media thing, I thought I saw your post the other day. It's like, guys, just let it go.
5 seconds.
What are you guys playing?
Welcome back to the Roundup on Pulse Sports Network. Me and Carson are going to go more into depth on each unit of the team with Coach Holt, and I'm going to start it off with the quarterbacks, and I'm going to go on the positive side of things with Yoshi Callahan. Of when you sit a guy, you sometimes maybe you think might get in their head, he's going to be down on himself and maybe not want to come in and play. He came in, he stayed he played lights out for his first drive. His second pass was a touchdown pass, and he stayed upbeat pretty much all game. After getting thrown into the wall on a safety, he came back next play, got in the huddle, and called another play. What do you see in the bright spots of Yoshi's game?
The bright spot of his game is one, he's mobile. You know, he's a guy that can extend plays with his legs and get the ball out of his hands at times. At times, I think he became too predictable in his reads and his progressions to where he only stuck to one side of the field. And I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that he's only been with us 3 weeks. So for him, it's easier to take a side of the field that has more options. And I truly believe that he became predictable, and the heroes started keying in on those factors and jump some routes and were able to get some interceptions. Then I think we had a few breakdowns and protection up front that kind of forced him to throw the ball deep downfield up for grabs. But I guess one of the bigger things that you try to get those young guys to understand, it's okay to throw the ball into the third and fourth row because those people can't return them back for touchdowns.
Staying with the quarterbacks, going through practice, do you want to see the quarterback you want to see a guy that takes control of the team, becomes a leader? Which one of these guys you think can come in practice this week and take over the team?
Yoshi, I think, definitely has all the tools. I really think when he came in, he gave us a great spark. And I think that the team really rallied around him and fought lights out. You know, at one point, you know, the score was 14-6, and we were getting the ball back and was able to try and go down and get another score, but ended up getting a turnover on downs because you had a holding penalty on the second play of that drive, which puts us behind the sticks. And then you have a missed handoff where, you know, you're supposed to give the ball to the running back, and their mesh point was kind of off. He kept the ball. We lost some yards on that play. So just some of those things that young guys tend to speed things up in their own head. And once he gets comfortable with the guys he's around and learning what true skill sets each one of those guys bring to the game, he'll settle down, and I think he'll be fine.
Definitely. Moving on to Carson with the linebackers.
Yeah, I'm going to start with the offensive line, just develop on what Blake said about the quarterback. Obviously, Yashi has a lot of potential and a lot of spark for the game. You can see his passion for football when he gets on that field. But especially with young quarterbacks around any league, they need more time to make their reads. Obviously, I felt that was a big part of him making his missed throws. A lot of open receivers missed because they didn't have time to throw the ball. And especially with mistakes, of course, that fumble in the end zone, which led to a safety earlier. Do you plan to make any changes in the offensive playbook to develop around the quick release time of the quarterback?
Not really. Not trying to give too much away on that aspect. You know, each one of our plays has what you would call a check down option to it, and unfortunately, I think it took a little longer for him to realize who his check down was and where he would float out to, or where he was lined up at. I guess one of the bigger things that I've seen that I'll point out was, you know, as a quarterback, it's your responsibility to know a awful lot about down and distances and time. You know, we ended up having 2 delay of game penalties on one drive, and then you have a 4th and 4, and instead of trying to get the first down, you throw the ball deep down the middle of the field when you have a guy standing over at the sticks, basically wide open. So those are the type of missed things that you get, and when you start, getting behind and score, you start pressing a little bit more, and you're trying to get it all back in one shot. And I think those are the types of things that he'll learn from, as will all of the other quarterbacks, because they got a good opportunity to see that the game is a lot faster. I try to tell young guys all the time, if I could simulate the true speed of the game in practice, I think you would be better served. But unfortunately, I really don't think anybody can truly simulate the entire speed of the game during the week, because you're literally trying to work on your game plan, and you're trying to get guys in the right positions, and you're trying to limit injuries, and those are just all things that we try to put them in the best position with the best play call, and hope that we can move forward from there.
And another thing about the offensive line, I saw late in this, or early in the second half, early in the first half, you like to develop the run game a little bit, but it seemed to fade away as the game went on. Obviously, points being scored against you, you have to start passing the ball more. Going into Peach State, do you expect to implement more running into the game, or do you want to keep it straight passing?
I like to run the ball, and I definitely think we have the guys up front to do that. As you know, a lot of teams, they typically just try to run the ball just to try and keep things honest. I like to try to run the ball to get yards, because if you can go, 2nd and 6 and 3rd and 4, your opportunities to make first downs and keep drives going builds confidence. And the more snaps you can give, a group, the more confident they become. Going 3 and out, 4 and out, turnovers, those things all kill drives, and they kill confidence. So you definitely want to try to have a balanced attack. I know at one point in time, like you said, once the score started ballooning in the wrong direction, and we just seemed like we were throwing the ball every down. Well, when that happens, teams just tend to tee off on you. They're lying, and they're coming a lot harder, and the linebackers are basically now, they're not blitzing, they're just dropping back in coverage. Well, when you got 3 guys running routes and 5 guys back in coverage, your windows that are already small get even smaller.
Yep. That's true. I guess we'll move on to Blake with the next unit.
Yeah, I'm going to talk secondary, and it went from not pretty to really ugly really fast. And you want to say that the leadership's there, but in the first half it was really, Peebles is guarding 3 guys almost on one side, and the rest are on the left side not really guarding anyone. Is that just relaying the calls, or just guys not knowing what they're doing?
Some of it I think is a little bit of both, but it's not due to a lack of knowing what we expect. I think we got into a pattern where we said, if they're going to do this, then we're going to do this. And I think guys just got comfortable with saying, okay, they're in that formation, I'm standing over here, and I'm sitting there looking at them saying, well, who are you guarding? There's 3 guys on that side of the field, and you're standing here. There's nobody here. Everybody goes to the other side. You just kind of slide the coverage over. And the crowd was extremely loud. I don't know if from where you guys was standing at, if you could truly understand how loud that place really is. There's times I'm sitting here talking to a guy as close as we are, and they couldn't hear or understand what I was saying to them. So I definitely think some of the calls got lost in the noise. Some of the calls got lost in frustration. lack of composure, and some of it is just familiarity with the guys who are out there on the field. You know, once Peebles went down and you bring in your next DB, you know, now you basically move Watkins from safety down the corner, and then it's a position we work with him at in practice all the time, but at the same time, in a game situation, that's extremely different for him because you're looking at different things rather than watching guys coming open over the top. Now you're having to watch guys come running right at you, and it's just game speed versus, you know, like I said, that the whole practice speed is truly different when you have the level of competition coming at you, the crowd noise. You know, I think a lot of that all played into a factor. First game jitters, you know, so it's big for us to get that game under our belt and go back to work and try and fix those things that we did poorly Saturday and just come out this Sunday and make a better showing.
Yeah, definitely. Watching these guys, speed really isn't the problem. They can keep up with the receivers, just figuring out where to be, when to be. I'm going to steal a little bit from Carson's unit in the linebacking core, but I'm going to take off the punishment for the secondary a little bit. Sometimes you could see in the middle of the field, as you were talking earlier, the corners wanted to sit down on the flat and take a guy that the linebacker's supposed to be, because he, in his mind, was like, the linebacker's not going to be able to get him. I'll take him, and the guy's running for a touchdown. Mm-hmm. Is that a just communication problem between linebackers and secondary?
It is, and again, like I said, that whole back five is new to us. You know, those guys have worked in practice, you know, extremely hard. But then again, like I said, when you factor in first game on the road and in an environment like that, and it's tough to get the calls in from me to them where they're communicating to them on the backside and knowing, okay, who has what flat responsibility, who's blitzing, who has middle. Some of those things, you know, you look at I think a couple of plays, especially in the first quarter, where we had both linebackers in the middle of the field. So neither one of them blitzed and neither one of them covered the flat. So at that point, yeah, you're as a DB, you know they like to throw a lot of curls. You know they like to throw a lot of slant routes. And I think we tried to sit too much on those routes, but then that hurts you deep. So it was good game planning on their part and poor execution on ours. We just have to execute better at what we're doing and trust the guys that's out there.
Definitely. Moving on to Carson G.
And with Blake taking the linebackers for me, I'm just going to go ahead and move straight to the wide receiving core of the team. Personally, I thought the wide receiving core for the Carolina Cowboys has been really good through the first game of Cape Fear, making open routes, catching good balls like Cash James, making a real impact on the team. But with the loss of Cash James and just major players on the team, who do you expect to step up on this wide receiving core and make open routes and make it easier on the quarterback?
Well, you know, we have a young guy on the roster named Jordan Freeman, who basically catches everything that's thrown his way. He's just never played the game, so he'll get his opportunity and his shot this week. You know, he's on that 30-man roster for a reason. We believe that he could do it. It's just, you know, my philosophy of young guys is, do you take them into an environment like that and see what they got and potentially crush their confidence because they don't play well? Or do you sit them, let them watch the whole dynamic of the game and learn from a game film where they can see full speed what we're trying to do and learn from those veteran guys that, you know, are 5, 6, 7 year arena guys, and learn from what they're doing and how they get open and how they run those routes and learn from that, and just now get your opportunity to come in and show the world your talent and your skill set, because there's no doubt that he can play at this level. It's just, getting the true timing of your routes. Indoor routes are a lot different because they're a lot faster. You have to read things coming at you a lot faster. And sometimes younger guys are a little slower to pick things up. So with that being said, I think he's going to do great this week. He's definitely hungry to get out there and show what he has. And then we'll just move forward from that and continue to just work him into the system and working with the quarterbacks.
Yeah, and sorry, Blake, let me tell you to talk. You good? Okay. The wide receivers, were they getting frustrated during the game? I know there's a lot of things happening into it. Young quarterback, poor offensive line at times. How frustrated were the receivers coming off the field when they're wide open and not getting the ball that they want?
I wouldn't necessarily say it's a frustration thing. I think it's more of a competitive fire that, you have three guys that in low, Tyon and Cash and Shaq that have all got, 30, 40 games under their belt. So they know how to get open. They understand the grind of the season and of a game. And that group stayed positive. They stayed, coming over to the quarterbacks and talking about adjustments during the game because of what they had to accomplish off the field, on the sidelines, just picking the quarterbacks up. And yeah, you make a bad play, it's okay, move on to the next one. Don't dwell on it. Don't beat yourself up, and just try to keep everything positive. And that's what you want with veteran guys is to just keep your quarterbacks engaged in the games. Don't let them get too down on themselves. And that's really as a team as a whole. You don't let your lows get too low and your highs get too high.
That's going to wrap up the units with me and Carson. We'll be right back with a game preview of the Peach State Cats this Sunday here on Pulse Sports Network.
Two units.
Didn't mean to interrupt you, Blake. Sorry about that.
No, I thought you were done with the questions. I didn't mean to. Wave at the camera, Chris.
It's your first one?
Yes, it is.
Good job.
Appreciate it. Should have been here last week.
Considering he made your job a little harder by taking your shine.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to take a brief thing of Carson's real quick, which was my whole thing. But
I'll take your whole segment.
I didn't know I was taking his question.
I wasn't really my question, but you just already covered it. So. It was pretty much. He pretty much wrapped up the entire linebacking core, so I might as well moved on.
I didn't have really any wide receiver questions anyway. I was just going to talk about Tyon.
Well, you figured we had one of our linebackers had a death in his family over the weekend, so he didn't make the trip. And then one of the offensive linemen, Julian, didn't play because he had to work. He got called in to work at the last minute.
10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
One more segment here on the Roundup on mypulseradio.com, the Pulse Sports Network. If you're watching, hello. Thanks for joining us tonight. And we need to talk about next week. It's a Sunday game, which is kind of weird. Sunday 4:05 down in Athens, a lot shorter trip this time, against the Peach State Cats. Always have to be careful saying that. There's a lot of plosives and such in there. Last week when we played, the Dragons were playing them, kept calling them Peach Street because I was thinking of Atlanta too much. But anyway, Peach State Cats this week coming up, and it's a very big game. I mean, it's a divisional game. It's a chance for you to put last week behind you, get even in the division, and move ahead. So, what do you know about Peach State so far?
I know the head coach was the head coach of the championship Havoc. So he once the Havoc relocated down to Florence, the Peach State offered him the job. He took it to I imagine to stay more into the Georgia area and not have to travel that far with the team. And from just knowing what the Havoc were about, I don't expect anything different from them. They're going to be an aggressive team on defense and offense. They're going to be methodical and very detail oriented and try to hit you with the big plays, get you out of position, looking at some different things and some different window dressings and take their shots deep.
What would you say is their strength? Their defense? I mean, they played actually pretty good against the Havoc last week. They did play the Havoc, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And although they lost and were dominated, so to speak, the fact that the Havoc only scored, we're talking about arena football, 54 points, means that they played pretty good defense against a really good offensive team.
For them, I think everything starts with the defensive line. They have a very quick, aggressive defensive line that really tries to get after your quarterback and try to rattle him early. And then they just try to play good coverage on the back end, not giving up anything deep, and then come up and make solid tackles and try to go for the football and create turnovers. But I think the biggest thing that they do well is they really try to get you playing a lot faster than your normal. You know, they want to speed the quarterback up. They want to speed your offense up, which basically plays into their hands because then now you're trying to do things that you're really not comfortable in doing. And I've seen at times that they really did that pretty well against the Havoc. And I think we'll look at the film and break the film down and find ways to attack them in ways that we're comfortable with doing and just continue to do the things that we know we do well, you know, mixing in the passes and the runs and really try to give them a different look.
So that's kind of what you do. That's what I was gonna ask you, is how do you change the tempo of a game, knowing that they want to speed you up? How do you slow it down?
You really just kind of take your whole time with that 25-second play clock and just really make sure everybody's in the right position. Like I said, we had 2 delay of game penalties with guys just being confused on how to line up. We had some miscommunications in the backfield with the quarterback turning around, handing the ball off to the running back. And those are things that will get fixed. Those are things that are easily corrected. But, you know, just making better decisions with the football and not turning them over, those are the things that we really, really have to do well and not give them good field position when you do make those turnovers. Like I said, if I'm not mistaken, I don't really have the total numbers in front of me, but I believe they had 8 drives that started on our 25-yard line.
I wouldn't doubt it, yeah.
You can't give anybody that short of a field. You know?
Probably half of those were closer than that.
That half, exactly.
Definitely.
especially early on in the game, the first 4 was in the 20-yard end. So you can't do that in this game because you're putting your back against the wall early on, and you're fighting an uphill battle. And those are some of the things we'll really try to get out of this week, and being comfortable in what we're doing. I think will really play well for us this week.
Interviewing these guys all preseason, this is the game they're looking forward to. They've played against them in previous years, played for them in previous years. How is this week going to be different with getting them hyped up for the game, or is it just going to be let them handle it how they want to handle it?
For me, it'll just be business as usual. I try to take every game literally the same way. I prepare it the same way. I give the scouting reports and different things. But the true thing that we have to do a better job of is the guys taking their own personal ownership and preparing themselves mentally for what they like to do. Find those tendencies that they like to do. Does the right tackle lean more when it's a passing play versus when it's a running play? Does his drop step, is it a little shorter when it's a quicker throw than when they're trying to go downfield? So those are the things that each one of those guys can look at their individual competition. And if you're a defensive back, look at, how the wide receivers like to line up. How do, if you're a wide receiver, how do their DBs, do they play a lot of man? Are they playing a lot of zone? And just prepare yourself mentally with what you want to do and how it fits what we want to do.
And obviously there's a lot of pre-game or first-game jitters and nerves during the Cape Fear game. A lot of people nervous. Do you see going into Peach State this week those same kind of nerves? Do you think it will settle down and they'll kind of develop into their game a little bit?
I truly believe it'll settle down, but again, when you lose 3 or 4 guys, that means 3 or 4 new guys are gonna be there.
New jitters.
So it'll be getting those guys to really get rid of their jitters early on, and just coming in ready to play and being prepared mentally, physically to give us the best opportunity to play well and to win.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, I'm always interested in the mental aspect of coaching and having a game. We knew last week it was going to be tough. We knew that right off the bat. Cape Fear is going to be one of the best teams in the league. And then this week that this is a game that everybody's expecting you to not only be competitive in, but, a lot of people are saying you better win this one. So it's like a total swing. So, you may have the jitters and such, but it's all in the work of kind of molding a team. You're talking about that frustration earlier with some of the players, which kind of showed a little individuality rather than, come on, let's come together, rather than being individuals. And they showed some of that on the field, and, some of that's righteous. But molding the team together as a unit seems to be a big thing that would be important coming off a game like that, going into a game like this.
When your backs are against the wall, what do? Are you the type of player that's gonna just lay down and quit, or are you gonna fight and continue to work at getting better? Both teams, us and Peach State, we both played quality opponents last week. So if you look at an advantage or an edge, you would definitely tip your hat to Peach State. Their game was, from what you look at on tape, they didn't have as nearly as many mental breakdowns and what they were doing as we had. But our mental breakdowns, I believe, are truly easy to fix. Now, if a guy is so frustrated that he's really not focused anymore on the game, then that's where you replace him and you bring another guy in, let him settle himself down. Those are the coaches' decisions. That's where, we get together and we make those decisions, because this could be a fresh 21. Guys tend to have to understand that just because you came game one, you were a part of that 21, doesn't necessarily mean you'll be a part of the game, the 21 for week 2, because certain things as a coach I'm not going to tolerate, and one of those is basically quitting on your teammates. There's never a reason why you basically just go pout and mope on the sideline and everything is everybody else's fault. There's a certain level of ownership within all of us, starting with myself at the top, to prepare this team a lot better than they were this week. Those were some of our fears, that guys would get this false sense of greatness and then go get embarrassed. Well, sometimes getting embarrassed is actually humbling. And when those things happen, it tends to cut a light on for some guys that they go and study just a little bit harder. They go to the gym and prepare themselves physically just a little bit harder, and it will make this week that much better.
Yeah, we hope so. You guys got anything to add before we wrap it up here?
Nothing much except gotta get a big win this week.
Yeah, it's a must-win situation, and I truly hope Cowboys go in there and win.
Sure, it'd be nice to get that with the home opener looming a couple of weeks down the road after that. To come off of that and get the home crowd in the new arena, what are we calling it? Tombstone. Yeah, looking forward to that. Seems like it's still forever away, but it's coming up. All right, so if you're wanting to be watching or listening on Sunday, there's a lot of different ways you can do that. Of course, you can watch via the BoxcastTV link that will be just about sent out everywhere. The YouTube channel for the Carolina Cowboys as well. There'll be a link on the carolinacowboys.com. As far as listening, mypulseradio.com, and the WPPB, the Pulse app, TuneIn, Radio FX. There's tons of ways you can get the Cowboys this year and keep track of everything that's going on. It's good to hear. I got a text during the game the other night. A couple of different watch parties were going on in Anderson. Hope those guys had a good time and didn't drink too much after things got out of hand. But I know that's a cool thing, that we got some fans out there that are really rooting for the team, all dressed in their blue and white and such. So we hope you all get together and enjoy the one this weekend. A good way to close out the weekend on a Sunday afternoon. So again, that's at 4 o'clock will be our airtime on Sunday from Athens. Hope you can join us then as the Cowboys play Peach State.
And I just want to add to that, I think you guys did a great job for that game one broadcast. The live stream looked extremely professional, and we just appreciate you guys doing that for the Cowboys.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, and we're going to also try to get better as we go along too. That's the story of going through a season. So we hope to have y'all joining us this weekend for game number 2 from Athens. Until then, I'm John Boone, along with Coach Dennis Holt. Thanks for joining us again. Carson, yeah, I almost forgot your name.
And Blake Miller.
Never see you guys, so it's hard for me. So long, and we'll talk to you this weekend on the Pulse Sports Network and mypulseradio.com.
Well, sure.